Hello, and welcome to another new episode of Talking Comics with the Toy Vault. I'm Alex.
I'm Alyssa.
And today we're going to be shaking things up a little bit due to some recent changes. This is going to be an every other week show, every 2 weeks, just like some of your favorite comic books. So to balance that out, we're going to be talking about more books. We're going to be talking about 6 books this week. Alyssa, what are we talking about this week?
So for Marvel, we have the issue 1 of the annual of the Domino series. We have issue 0 of Spider-Geddon. And then in DC, we have the Heroes in Crisis number 1. Batman Damned, of course. There's no way we could skip it. And for Indie, we have Archie 1941 and Stranger Things.
Yes. A bunch of number 1s and 0s. It's going to be a good day. So we're going to kick it off with Domino. So this is the annual issue of Domino. If you haven't been keeping up with the series, it's been written by Gail Simone. I love Gail Simone. And it's a pretty solid series. So the annual is featuring 4 different heroes and like Domino's interactions with them, and ends with like a personal note for Domino about her mutant powers and abilities. What do you think of Domino Annual number 1?
I'm into it. I mean, it's like a bunch of, like you said, it's like 4 little mini stories. It's not just like one consistent story that goes throughout the whole thing, but it's kind of interesting. I like to see how she interacts with different characters, and plus Domino is just a really cool character to begin with.
She's great. I love Domino.
Me too. I was really excited when they were going to start doing like a solo series for her, so I've been keeping up with it.
So Domino Annual 1. It talks about her meeting with Outlaw, her and Diamondback hanging out, her like relationship with Cable and her relationship with Colossus, how all of them interact together, and it's just really fun, different stories. Each one is by a different artist and writer, so it gives you a different feel and style of Domino each time you see it. And it's just like her throughout the years. You get to see her different like outfits and costume designs and character changes. It all leads back to the same thing that like.
And all her different romantic endeavors.
Many of her different romantic endeavors.
Domino gets around.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a little collab issue, and it ends with probably one of my favorite interactions. It's Nightcrawler leading a support group for mutants who, due to their mutation, can no longer pass as like obviously human. So it's like him, Beak, Toad, Eye-Boy, and a few other recognizable X characters, both heroes and villains, because this is a problem that persists between any enemy borderlines. And it's actually all organized by Domino, but Kurt, being the most charismatic of the X-Men, is leading it with his nice beard.
I actually like that they started to bring this up, because even, like I follow a lot of people on, like Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and stuff like that who are just really into comics and everything. And one of the things that everybody always makes fun of is how in the X-Men movies, like Storm gives Rogue that giant like speech about how like we don't need to be fixed, blah blah blah. You're perfect the way you are, and they're just like, yeah, but Storm's also somebody who has awesome powers that she can control very easily, and she's gorgeous. Mm-hmm. So it's like she's not one of those people who is going to literally murder somebody with a single touch, or somebody who is so disfigured that they cannot even go out in public without people freaking out about it.
Like what Kurt Nightcrawler saying that like at a young age his best friend's father like poisoned him against him by telling him that he's a demon, a devil, because he looks like a blue devil, but like, that's just how his mutation manifested. It's not something you can control. And on the other side, it talks about like characters who've lost their mutation due to like accidents and like the House of M stuff, where these people no longer feel comfortable being themselves because they were used to being their mutation, and now they no longer feel comfortable being a person because they're not themselves.
It's interesting to see both sides of the spectrum and see people who have this opportunity to, pass as human and don't want to. Mm-hmm. They'd rather be the mutants that they always have been. But I think it's really cool. I think it definitely makes a statement.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite interaction in this whole book. So the Domino series, if you're not reading it, I'd highly recommend it. It's mostly written by Gail Simone. She's a really phenomenal comic writer, and just Domino's such a cool character. I'm so glad she's getting like more time to be like a legit character instead of just like Merc backstory, like filler stuff. Anytime Cable or Deadpool shows up to do something.
I'm hoping that since she was received so well in the Deadpool films too, that it'll give us more of an excuse to see her.
Hopefully we'll see. Yeah, no, I've had a lot of people coming in asking for more Domino stuff, and I'm trying my best to throw out more things, but there isn't a whole lot. But this Domino series is hopefully going to answer all the need for Domino. So next up, we're gonna move on to Spider-Geddon #0. This issue is sort of a prelude issue to the Spider-Geddon main series thing about the return of the Inheritors, sequeling the Spider-Verse series. And for all of those PlayStation 4 owners, video game players, this issue is a tie-in directly from the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man game that came out recently. It's all about this Earth's Peter Parker, which I believe they've categorized as 1048. And it just talks about this Peter Parker post-events of the series. So if you haven't finished the game, it doesn't spoil a whole lot, but I would highly recommend waiting till you're done with the game to read this issue. But then it also brings back some of my favorite Spider characters in a sort of a prequel prelude to the Spider-Geddon series. Alyssa, what did you think about this book?
I like it a lot. I'm not like completely on top of my Edge of Spider-Geddon. Is that what it was? Edge of Spider-Geddon?
Yeah.
Like the one shots that were coming out. Yeah.
Issue 4 also released the same day as the Spider-Geddon issue 0.
That I haven't gotten the chance to read. I think I've gotten as far as the Gerard Way one,
yes,
which was issue 2. So I'm a little bit behind with it, and I don't own a PS4, so I haven't gotten the chance to play Spider-Man, which is really unfortunate because I've seen all the posts about it, and it looks absolutely incredible.
It's super good.
I've heard nothing but good things.
It's amazing. It's so much fun. I beat it, and I'm going to play it again today.
No, I've heard like really good things about it. So I mean, like if this is a direct tie-in, then that explains why I was a little bit confused. But at the same time, like I'm interested. I think it's cool.
It's a good story, and the art, and they make the art style. They give it like that weird 3D realism kind of thing to make it feel like the 3D-ness of the game, so that way it feels like you're not reading like a direct like comic world thing. You're reading something that was originated from a video game.
I like seeing different Spideys interact with each other.
I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man is one of my favorite Marvel heroes of all time, and just the different interactions, the different Spider-Man, the different people who take up the Spider mantle. It's everything I love. So anytime a new Spidey like event happens, I'm just so excited.
I love how different they all are from each other.
Exactly. But the one thing that rings true in all the Peter Parker Spider-Mans is that they all sound like comedians in an open mic night.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I would say that's a fair assessment.
It's something that the character who brings in to tie in the series says to him, and I'm just, yeah, that is a fair assessment. We learn throughout, the history and Spider-Man, like Peter Parker's witty banter is just a nervous thing he does, or something he does to relax the people around him. Because if everyone's so serious, it's gonna make everything tense. So if Spider-Man's there and he's lighthearted and he's cracking jokes, it makes the people he's rescuing feel at ease, and it puts him at ease, and it throws off the villains. It's so fun. I love Spider-Man.
That particular character also seems to be irked that no matter which Peter Parker he encounters, they can just never take anything seriously.
I love it. I love Peter.
He's just kind of like, can somebody please focus on the task? And they're all just kind of like, nah.
That happens in the Spider-Verse. It's such a good story.
Yeah, I like it. I'm gonna try to keep up with it.
Yeah,
I'm drowning in books.
I hear you. But this is definitely one of those series that like I would highly recommend. I read all of Spider-Verse when it came out, all the tie-ins and everything like that, and it was such a great read. There are some that were better than others, but overall, like a whole story, it's such a great interaction.
That's pretty much how it goes with any sort of comic, though. Anything you're following, it's always gonna be like some issues are gonna be better than others. Like...
Yeah, that's true. But it's worth it in the end, because then you get super collectible things. But yeah, so definitely check out Spider-Geddon. I highly recommend it. Edge of the Spider-Geddon series itself. The Superior Octopus, which is coming out as part of this. This is going to be a great series. I love the Superior Spider-Man, Superior Octopus. So check it out, guys. Next up, we're moving on to our DC sections. We're going to be doing Heroes in Crisis, #1 of 9. Alyssa.
I did not think this book was going to get this intense this fast.
So quick, so fast. I don't like. They say in the previews and the preludes that like somebody's going to die, and they weren't kidding. I'm not gonna say anything more than that. Like, this story may seem a little confusing when you go into it because you feel like you missed something, but it's one of those stories where it's happening in the middle of the arc. This issue 1 starts in the middle of the story, so it's going to backflash and backtrack as it does throughout this issue on the different things, and we're gonna get caught up somewhere in the middle of the actual 9 issues about the full past and lead-in into the series. I, for one, am so excited for Heroes in Crisis.
I've been seeing the flyers like on our counter at the store for quite some time now, and I found it to be kind of intriguing just because basically I think the flyers actually have the same image on the cover that the issue does.
Yeah.
Where it's basically just like it
gorgeous
shows
clay man
like
art.
every DC character ever pretty much. Well, not all of them, but you know what I mean.
A good
A
amount
pretty
of them.
decent chunk of the DC characters, and
They're
then just the
big Barda.
tagline of "Somebody will die." So it's just kind of like immediately you kind of just sit there wondering to yourself like, "Damn, like who are we about to see go?"
Animal Man's all the way in the back. I see Alfred all the way over there. The Wildcat. Hey, that's Kite Man. Kite Man's so good. They had a whole ballad of him. It was great.
So yeah, definitely check out this issue. It brings up some characters that have not been seen in the DC universe for quite a long time, and it has the making to be a crisis of the DC universe. So it's already in that line of crises because DC loves their crises, and Marvel love their wars. Like anytime there's a big tie-in, it's something along those lines. So this is already one of the big crises of the DC universe, but I have the feeling that this is like in the making to be one of the better ones.
It's pretty good so far. I'm interested.
But if you haven't read any of the other crises, go back and check them out. All of them are pretty great. The original one, Crisis on Infinite Earths, is very much dated for its time, but it's still a fantastic read and kind of gives you like lets you relive those moments of like the big DC universe. My favorite being Identity Crisis, but that one is very much not for the younger audiences. That is a very more adult orientated theming through the context and the story itself. But Identity Crisis is very good. You should also check that out.
If you're not too familiar with the characters, but you're interested in this particular arc, I don't know if it's going to be a continuing thing throughout all 9 of the issues, but they almost do like this real world style like confessional thing where like they'll put whoever's speaking and they'll say a little bit about the hero and or villain, whatever it is. So at least that way you get like a little bit of insight into a character that you might not be too familiar with.
Yeah.
Like some of the ones, obviously, when you look at the cover, you're going to see like Superman. For the most part, everybody knows at least
Everyone
a little
knows
bit
the
about who
Trinity.
Superman is. But some people might not really know who Booster Gold is.
He's the greatest hero you've never heard of.
In his own words, yeah.
That's his tagline. It's my favorite. I love Booster Gold. But like a lot of these people on the cover are some people who have not been mentioned or seen or have been and just like are kind of been brushed over for a while in the DC universe. So I'm very much excited to see more of these characters thrown out there. I mean, look, there's Big Barda.
It's like that scene in Lego Batman. Do you know what I'm talking about? When like
when he lists off all the villains,
he's
like,
announcing
these
it's
are
like
all
you're
real.
making some of those up, and he's like, no, actually, these are all real villains.
The Condiment King is a very great villain.
That's the one I always
Classic.
think of, Condiment King.
The Condiment King is a very classic and real villain. He showed up in the animated series a bunch, or twice.
Yeah, there's a lot of really wild heroes and villains in the DC universe
Kite
that you
Man.
don't really
Kite Man's
see.
the only one that matters.
That you don't really see make it to the movies.
Read Tom King's The Ballad of Kite Man. It's a 2-issue series in the War of Jokes and Riddles. Hauntingly beautiful. It's great. That's pretty much all of Tom King's writing, every time I think about it, because he wrote a 12-issue series for Marvel called The Vision, which is single-handedly one of my favorite Marvel stories. It's so well done. If you haven't read it, go read it. There's some prelude stuff to it that'll tell you in the comics that you should read when you get to it. But overall, it's a really great series, and it gives me one of my favorite characters in the new Marvel universe, Vision. She's great in Champions. Read Champions.
It's always like wild to me when people write for both DC and Marvel, or when they switch over, because it just seems like such a giant like, what do you mean?
There's some people who like bounce back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
There's some people who are like stuck and will only write for the one company. Like Brian Michael Bendis was synonymous with Marvel for so long and everything like that, but then he got a contract deal with DC. Jason Aaron pretty much only writes for Marvel. Jeff Lemire goes back and forth a lot, depending on like the story he wants to tell. So Heroes in Crisis, definitely check it out. It's 9 issues on the cover, which is odd. Usually it's like 8 or 10 or 12, so 9's a weird number, but check it out. It starts off pretty good. So next up, we're going to be talking about...
We're going to be talking about book 1 of Batman Damned, which is the first book, right, on the new DC Black Label?
Yes, which let me preface this all off by saying I am very much excited for the DC Black Label. And even without the controversy behind Batman Damned, I would have absolutely been wanting to talk about this book. Because the DC Black Label is everything I would have wanted out of a DC line. It takes these characters that we know and we love, and it puts them out of the continuity and just lets them tell a good story, like a What If, an Elseworld. That's what I love about like DC and Marvel. They're what ifs and Elseworlds. Like this one is a what if, essentially. What if the Joker was murdered? Like, this is the whole point of Batman Damned, and it's a really interesting story and premise. And the fact that we get it in this sweet prestige formatting, which is like magazine styling, is huge. Literally, it's big. It's a big issue. I have to get a whole nother box to store this thing in because it no longer fits in my normal comic boxes.
It's really nice.
It's great. And like it's written by Brian Azzarello and Lee Bermejo. Lee Bermejo has a spectacular art style throughout this entire series and his career. It's so good. He makes the wrinkliest of suits, but they're the most extreme. Like Batman's boots got like 9 buckles on it for no reason. He's never met an iron in his life, but like it's beautifully done, and the character designs that we see Bermejo talk about in the series are just great.
It literally seems like he's wearing a pair of like Demania boots.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I love the Bermejo Batman style. There's even an action figure of it out right now. There's a Bermejo Superman and a Bermejo Batman, and it's so good. It's so wrinkly. It's great.
So
let's just start this off right now.
So if
this is going to be not for kids, adults, parents. Make sure that no children, no youngins are listening right now.
I feel like one of the main pitches about the DC Black Label
It's a
is
mature
that
label.
It's for adults.
That's the whole thing. That's another thing. Like, it's not confined by the restrictions of the teen plus labeling that most comic books are forced to adhere to.
This isn't supposed to be like the Batman that we see in movies.
Yeah.
It's not that guy. So if that's what you're expecting out of it, absolutely not. Which kind of leads me into, all right, so in the event that for some reason you haven't heard about this book at all, or, you haven't really been paying attention to the internet, social media, the reason that so many people are talking about this and that so many people are trying to find it is because there's a couple of panels in here where Batman's drawn exposed. Full frontal, completely nude Batman. But it's a book that's literally for adults. It was never intended for children. So the fact that that sort of artwork appears in here, I don't feel like people should have been as big of an outrage.
The problem with it is that, like, no one thinks that comics have ratings on them. Mm-hmm. Like, every comic has a rating. Yeah, it's small, not as big, and maybe that's something that comic industries should try to push out. But there's also the medium that comics is for everyone. But there is still an appropriate amount of content to be viewed by certain ages of people. Like this issue, while the story itself is not something that would have been particularly upsetting for someone younger than 17 to read, it's the imagery and everything that Bermejo brings to the panel that makes it unsuitable for anyone under 17 to read through that standpoint.
And the artwork is absolutely beautiful.
Stunning.
Like, it's not just, like, this really weirdly, like, crude drawn. Like, everything here is gorgeous. And to be completely honest, the first time that I read through Batman Damned, I didn't even notice. Like, I noticed one panel where he was...
Because the full frontal is shadowed and everything like that. It's supposed to be a metaphor for his vulnerability at the time, because it's him after realizing the main focus of this book, the death of the Joker. He finds out that the Joker is dead, and he doesn't know how or why, which is a big problem for Batman. Batman's whole shtick is that he knows things. He's 10 steps ahead of everything. But when something happens in his city he doesn't know about, it throws him for a loop. And the fact that his greatest enemy is dead and no one knows how or why is throwing everything out there. And that was supposed to be a metaphor for his vulnerability at that moment, because he feels like he doesn't know his city and he doesn't know himself.
He's stripped down, exposed, and not wearing the bat suit because he doesn't know how to be Batman in that moment.
Exactly.
It makes
a
perfect
really
sense to
great
me.
scene. It makes perfect sense. It's just that unfortunately, when this book was picked up by people and by parents, they saw Batman and they assumed. But I feel like that's a problem on DC's end. They have a big old black sticker on the bottom left-hand corner that says DC Black Label, but they should also have it surrounding like mature audiences only.
Yeah, the mature shouldn't be on the back of the book down in the corner like it is.
It should be.
It should have been more prominent.
More prominence included into the DC Black Label like insignia itself.
But that's the reason you've been seeing the book listed for places for a lot more money than it was,
In cover
market
price,
value. Yeah, that's why you see like the Jim Lee variant is obviously worth way more than the regular one is right now, which they're both beautiful. Like I'm telling
Jim Lee
you
is
right
one
now.
of my favorite comic artists in the industry currently.
And unfortunately, if you're somebody who wanted to read this book because you were just excited about the Black Label and about a new Batman story, you're going to have to wait for the reprint to actually be able to pick it up unless you have it already, because there's no way you're just going to find it sitting on the shelf in a comic store for $6 anymore.
Exactly. But there is, like she said, second printing's coming. They're doing a whole new wave of them. So if you do really want to read the story, which I would highly recommend, it's such a fascinating intrigue. And also,
the second printing's going to be censored, we should
Yeah.
probably point out.
it's going to be censored. That's the thing.
It's going to be the same storyline. Nothing's going to be different except the fact that they're going to shade over the bat bits.
Or this included entirely. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't make or break the story. And also, I feel like this is one of the things from a major league. I was talking to one of our coworkers, and he brought up a great point that the DC Black Label is one of those parts of the comic industry, especially a mainstream comic industry, that we should support. Because without DC Black Labels, we won't be getting this insane creativity that we're going to be getting. There's a Batman book coming up where it's like him on the road, like Mad Max style, with like a shrunken head Joker. And he doesn't remember anything of the past. Like, it's very, like, post-apocalyptic. And that sounds amazing. We would never get that.
It does sound amazing.
We would never get that in a regular DC book. Because one, doesn't fit the continuity. It just doesn't make sense for the character. And why would this happen? That doesn't matter. This is just a what if, an Elseworld. This happened because of reasons. Enjoy.
And it's absolutely ridiculous to discredit, like, an entire book because of a couple of panels. Because you know what? If you look however far back as you want, like, literally any point in history, artists have always drawn nude people. It doesn't matter if it's male, female, whatever. And it's almost like a Baroque looking picture. Like, it's got that really solemn, like, darkness with the shading to it. Like,
Bermejo's art is just absolutely stunning.
I mean, it's very classic looking almost. Like, I just don't think it should have been as big of a deal as it is. And unfortunately, it overshadowed how good the book really is, because all anybody's talking about is those couple of panels instead of talking about how awesome the story is and how worth it is to pick up and read.
So if you have the first, printing, good for you. But if you don't and you want to read it, check out your local comic shop, check out the Toy Vault for those second printings, and read this story. Support the DC Black Label, because it is one of these things that will die without the support, and without it, we won't get the amazing storylines we're getting. I believe like the Batman White Knight, that was a weird Elseworld that shouldn't be on the DC label. And I think the sequel is going to be put onto the Black Label. So if you want more White Knight, support the Black Label. And it's going to go past Batman. We're going to get other storylines, but of course they're going to start with Batman, because that's just what makes sense.
Yeah, Batman is, well, maybe not the most, but Batman is
he's the pillar of the DC universe.
Absolutely. Like, Batman and Superman. Like, without either of them, you wouldn't have DC.
Exactly. But I'm just hoping that we'll get some more like trench coat brigade nonsense. I'm hoping for more Justice League Dark, like actual like weird gritty darkness from Justice League Dark. I'm hoping for some sweet storylines with the Doom Patrol, because while I like the Gerard Way Doom Patrol, I felt like I needed more of that darker tone that the Grant Morrison run brought to us than the insanity tone that we got from the Gerard Way run.
Gerard Way is also not that consistent in putting out books.
No, he is not.
As much as I absolutely love Gerard Way, he's not that consistent.
Sorry, Gerard. I have no faith in your ability to put out comics.
They're always awesome when they finally come out.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to be picking up all four issues of Umbrella Academy Volume 3 in the next 5 years, because that's how long it'll take to put out those issues.
You're not wrong.
But anyway, Alyssa, what's up next on the docket?
All right, so we're moving on to the indie section. Since we've referenced Archie and Riverdale a couple of times in our past episodes, I thought that it would be good to finally actually talk about an Archie comic. And so we've got a number 1 of 5 here that's actually Archie 1941. So this is not the Archie that you see on Riverdale. Same characters, but it's definitely not that. And it's not
even the newer Wade Staples redesign of them. Although this is written by Mark Waid, which is the only reason these Archie books are as good as they are.
It's literally Archie 1941.
Yeah.
And it means it literally, like it takes place in the year 1941 when the characters that we've come to know are graduating from high school and pretty much just trying to figure out what to do with their lives. And if you know, a bit about history of that time period, you would know that there's a big war going on at the time. There's a lot to do with like Nazis and Hitler and Germany, and them being graduates, they're at the ripe age where you know that they're going to end up having to go to war.
The best part about this book is that it takes place right before the U.S. involvement in in World War II. So that's the whole thing about this series. This whole series shows like the sweet, bittersweet moments of your last summer of high school, of teen years, but also sprinkles the fact that there is a great war looming over and that America is about to get involved, which is a huge thing in this idyllic Riverdale town.
It basically seems like they're still watching this happen from afar, but feeling distanced from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know what's happening and they know it's a big deal, but it doesn't feel like it's happening to them.
Yeah.
But the more that you read into it, the more times you see the headlines pop up, the more times you see this whole like war scenario being, I don't want to say like shoved into their faces, but it's appearing more. It's on newspapers in the background.
It's something that's harder for them to ignore throughout the series.
And with Archie being a character in this book who doesn't know what to do with himself, he's having a hard time finding a job. His dad's constantly on him about his future. You know that his answer is going to be to go to war. There's no other way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the direction that this book is going. Otherwise, why would you... I don't want to say why would you write it, but I mean, like, that's clearly the direction that it's going. I feel like it's going to get really sad.
It's going to be. I feel like this is just another like afterlife of Archie in the making, because like the series, Afterlife of Archie, was unprecedented for when it came out. No one thought they'd kill Archie Andrews in this big heroic moment. No one thought this would happen, and then it gets crazy and weird and dark, and like people freak out about it. And this is one of those series that I feel has that same tone, but it focuses on like the more solemn aspect of it. It kind of has that same feel to me that Peter Panzerfaust had, which if you haven't read Peter Panzerfaust, it is a story written by Curtis Weeb. Wybe? I don't know.
It's probably not Weeb.
I've only ever read it. So Curtis, if you're listening, please correct me. But it's a phenomenal story about the classic tale of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, but like imprints it into like mid-France World War II era, and it's a beautifully written story, beautifully penciled, and this story right here has that same feeling, whether it be just because it's World War II or not. It has that same air to it that I got when I was reading first few issues of Peter Panzerfaust.
Unlike I'm intrigued by this. Like, it's not my favorite book right now,
No.
but I definitely
still
could
a
see it getting
solid
really
book.
good.
I would always highly recommend picking up singles, especially of a limited series, just because limited series books are always one of those things that, like, if you don't buy the singles, it doesn't get supported as much, so we don't get more stuff later. And then also you miss out on the sweet covers. There's so many different variants and covers for these issues, and it's always a great thing to get. So for these small limited runs, if you want them, make sure to add them to your pull list, because the more you wait, the harder it's going to be for you to get. And then it'll be out in trade, which will be easy to read, but you'll have missed out on all those amazing covers. So to wrap this all up, Alyssa, what's our last book?
Our very last book is through Dark Horse, and it is Stranger Things. And I have been excited for a really long time about this. When I first heard that they were doing a Stranger Things comic, I was really concerned that it was going to be too similar to how Marvel has been doing the Star Wars The Last Jedi and pretty much just fleshing out the movie panel by panel.
Oh, yeah, no, those are, while interesting to see, not something super interesting.
Like
not
as much
something
as
worth buying.
Yeah, exactly. Like as much as I love looking at the drawings and seeing like how they're captured in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that to be what Stranger Things was. I was afraid that it was going to be, just a rehash of the show that I've already watched 1.5 billion times. Because
Exactly.
I love Stranger Things.
It wouldn't have made it a compelling comic, and it wouldn't have made it a good comic to pick up. But this comic doesn't do any of that. It actually, Alyssa, without spoiling too much, talk about the book a little bit. What's the book?
So without spoiling it, I will say that if I've made you nervous so far by saying that it doesn't follow the show, that might not have exactly been completely true.
No.
It is the characters from the show that you know and love. They are drawn to look very similar to the actors who play them in Stranger Things. However, this entire series is taking place from the point of view of Will in the Upside Down and his journey trying to get back home. It's how he's seeing the world. It's how he's trying to communicate with them and they're trying to communicate with him. So it fills in a lot of those blanks that everybody wonders about watching the show.
Yeah, like when we watch the show, you know that he's there and everything like that, but you don't know how it's like for him or anything like that. This story gives you that, and it's intriguing. I was super excited about it because that was one of my biggest questions about Stranger Things season 1 was like, we know it's a bad place. We've seen it physically in the show, but like, what was his experiences like in there? Like, was he just in his in the hideout the entire time? How exactly was he contacting them on the phone and the lights? How was he doing that? We find out in this series.
And I mean, on the show, he's obviously pretty messed up from his experience.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be something more to it than what we've been shown so far. Because I mean, like, whereas putting a kid into a situation like this would be traumatizing anyway, because it's absolutely terrifying. You're completely isolated. You don't know where you are. You don't know how to get home. And the worst part is that you can hear people trying to find you and you can't follow them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and monsters. Don't forget monsters.
Oh, and the monsters, of course. So, I mean, like, it's got to be horrible to begin with, but, like, we might see a little bit more of, like, how this place actually affects people who don't belong there, which is really cool. It's something really good to hold you over until Stranger Things comes out for season 3, because I know that it got pushed back a little bit. I'm pretty sad about it,
yeah,
but I'm
I mean,
hoping
it's
it
an
means it'll be
understandable
better.
reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm hoping that now that it's been pushed back, it's going to be even better. I'm dying for the new season of Stranger Things. I absolutely love this series. So I'm into the whole comic aspect of it.
Also, the art style, while like the comics is they're drawing it to be like this, like be recognizable as these actors. Just also like the backgrounds and the coloring is really nice. It's not overly saturated in darkness, even though it's in a dark world, which is like the problem you would think you would have. It has like wonderful like blues to balance it out. It's a really well drawn issue.
Yeah, you can tell that he's in a place that's dark without struggling to actually see what's happening inside of the panels.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was very well done. And there's a couple, cut scenes that go to Hawkins as you would see it without being in the Upside Down. And you can immediately tell the difference between them because of the coloration. It's very well done. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to ruin it if somebody's interested in it.
Definitely read it. If you like this series, if you like the Stranger Things series, or if you know someone who likes it, get this book for them. It's awesome, and it fills in. It's not just like a series that is just, oh, here's some more random little Stranger Things. This is actual, like, fill in the blanks to the season 1 story.
I would like to know if it's canon.
I'm pretty sure it would be. I mean,
I would assume that they wouldn't give the rights to do it if they didn't want it to be something that's a canon.
Yeah.
But I'd be interested just to know indefinitely.
Dark Horse Comics really specializes in taking things from media and like movies and TV series and giving them like an actual like sequel or more and stuff like that. Like, was it Buffy? The Buffy season like 11. Or the extra seasons of Buffy that they like call the comic series it's all done by Dark Horse, and it gives them like an actual ending to the series and more so, and gives them more character development and everything like that. And that's all completely with the canon because it's all written by Joss Whedon, for the most part.
I like that it's Will centric too, because I mean, obviously it would have to be if they wanted to do something with, but
and he's also one of the characters that got the least time to shine in season 1 because he was missing.
Exactly.
He was gone.
Like,
and that was his whole character, but now it's great to see him doing things.
Realistically, Will is the main character.
Yeah.
The story is about him and what happened to him, so.
This story doesn't exist without Will. If Will never went missing, the town of Hawkins would have been overran by monsters.
You think so?
I feel like it would be. Because without Will going missing, people wouldn't have been, like, noticing. People wouldn't have been, like, looking around. What would have happened is, like, 11 would have shown up. People would have been freaking out. And then they would have shipped her off to the mental hospital. Because that's what Lucas wanted to do in season 1. But they kept her around because she thought they knew where she knew where Will was. So without Will, like, the whole story just is kind of like, we need to get this girl help, and they wouldn't believe anything she said.
That's true. I agree with that, definitely. I mean, like, obviously Will is super, super important. Like, honestly, that whole Byers family is just so important. I know that it seems to focus more on the Wheelers, like Mike and Nancy's family.
Yeah.
But really that's just because Will's not present.
Exactly. And I mean, Winona Ryder, guys, come on.
Winona Ryder is incredible in Stranger Things.
She is phenomenal in everything.
And I know that, like, Stranger Things is one of those TV series where if you're not into it yet, you're probably sick of it. Mm-hmm. But it really is worth watching, and the comic's definitely worth reading. However, if you have not watched Stranger Things, I wouldn't suggest to read this comic because I feel like it's not going to make much sense to you.
Yeah.
I would like to have somebody who hasn't watched the show and doesn't intend on it read this, maybe to give a different opinion on that and see if maybe it intrigues them. But
if you haven't watched the show and read this comic, let us know in the comments. Tell us what you thought. Tell us if you thought it was something that felt like it would get you interested in watching the series. Or if you know someone who doesn't watch the series and you have this comic, let them read it. Find out what they want. Find out what they know about it. You know, spread it around. I always love book versions of series that include more story. Like with Avatar: The Last Airbender, we got 4 large volumes of books. 5 actually. We're reading 5 of them. Of just continuing storyline because, unfortunately, it costs a lot to make that kind of level of cartoon. And so they couldn't continue to make it. So then they wanted to end it at a certain point, but then they wanted to keep going and getting old and rehashed. So that's why we got the comics to fill in the blanks, and they moved on to a new series with new ideas. And now we're getting the sweet live-action series, which I'm excited for.
The Netflix series? Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that Bryke is going to be on it makes it so much better.
I know that a lot of people have been really nervous about it because of what happened the last time that they tried to do a live-action Avatar. But I think that people should give it a chance.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's the other extreme there. It's either people being really nervous or people pretending it's just never happened before.
What do you mean pretending? There was no other live action Avatar. I don't understand why people keep talking to me like this. There was no other live action Avatar. This is the first and only one to exist.
Is that your?
And it's gonna be so good.
Your Mandela effect right there, like the Bernstein versus Bernstein.
I don't understand what you're saying. There was no other live action Avatar. You can't prove it otherwise. All right. So to end this off, we're going to talk about some new books that are coming out in the next couple of weeks. So we tide you over the next few weeks. Alyssa, what are some books you're looking forward to?
I've been debating on picking up Blackbird, which is...
Blackbird looks real good.
It's an independent comic. Shock, shock, shock. I know. I'm thinking about reading independent comics. An Image comic at that.
My word.
Me reading an Image book? No, but I mean,
Unheard of. Unprecedented.
It looks pretty interesting. It's like a fantasy book, but it's like... It looks like it's almost kind of like apocalyptic-y, and it's basically about a girl who figures out that all this sort of like fantasy shadiness is going on, wants to tell people about it, but people think she's crazy, and she's not. She's right. But it looks really, really pretty. I like the way the characters are drawn. I like the way the flyer looks. I look at it every day at work. Mm-hmm. So it's gotten to the point where I'm like, I think I'm just going to pull it, and I'm going to give it a shot. There's another issue of Crowded coming out.
Crowded's good.
There is a Star Wars Solo series coming up. And I mean literally like in reference to the Solo movie. Like,
oh, I thought it was just like a one-shot.
No, like Solo series. Like it's
That'd
actually
be a great title for Star Wars one-shots.
Wouldn't it though?
A Star Wars Solo.
But no, it's like actually movie based. Like there's already the Lando Double or Nothing that's like drawn in like that. Like Donald Glover
like Lando
style.
Double or Nothing, or is it like the adaptations?
I think it's supposed to be like Lando Double or Nothing.
That's
cool. I could be wrong. If not, then it's going to be one of those adaptations we talked about where it's literally just the movie but in comic form.
Which, I mean, can look cool, but at the same time, like, I own the movie already.
Yeah, I could be totally wrong. I didn't think of that. I thought it was like, you know, now that you're saying it, it might just be because it doesn't have its own title. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like Solo. Why was this movie made? No, I actually really like Solo.
It was a good movie.
I really like Solo.
It was shockingly good.
That just actually came out on DVD yesterday.
I know.
I might have to pick it up.
The Superior Octopus #1. It's Doc Ock back in the Spidey costume and his new Ben Reilly clone Parker body. Just being the best Spider-Man octopus he can be. Spoctopus. Go-Go Power Rangers #13. I love the Go-Go Power Rangers series. I love the actual Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series. But Go-Go is a special place for me because of just the fact that it gives Trini more to be a character. Like, Mighty Morphin already makes Trini a better character. It gives her own like personality and what she's good at. Like, she's not just a B-grade Billy. She's better at Billy than certain things, and she has other things she cares about. But Go-Go expresses on that more on a more personal and emotional level, and it just makes it so much better. So read Go-Go Power Rangers if you haven't read it, and the whole Shattered Great Nonsense. Rose is back. It's a series written by Meredith Finch. It's a beautifully done series. It's issue 13 is coming out in a couple weeks. Written by Meredith Finch, illustrated by Ig Guerrera. It's one of those stories that makes me just feel like the 80s fantasy, like the Conan-esque 80s fantasy, just all over the page. It's so well done. If you're not reading Rose, read Rose. It's great.
And also, if there's any books coming up that you really want us to talk about, let us know in the comments. Let us know on Facebook or something. Basically, just like if there's something that you're unsure about that you know is coming out and you want to hear an opinion about it before you pick it up, let us know. We'll try to pick it up and read it for you, and we'll say something.
Yeah.
And we'll be honest about it. We won't say we like it if we don't.
Yeah. There's definitely been some books that we've talked about that we have not liked, but we still talk about because I feel like it's important to talk about them. Mm-hmm. All right. So this has been this episode of Talking Comics with the Toy Vault. I've been Alex.
I'm Alyssa.
And we'll catch you guys later.
You waved again.
I just can't help it.